This will be a very interesting discussion. I want to say hello and greetings to those who are going to check this out live and those who are going to see it afterward. Now, in prior weeks to the making of this, I've voiced my disillusion with a number of things that are related to um, political topics, relationship topics, yada, yada, yada. Um, but the central point, and the reason I kind of have started to talk about both these things at the same time, is that because things that are political and things that are newsworthy oftentimes involve the actions of people, even in your own personal life, you see things that are almost parallel to what we've experienced or seen by individuals in our own lives. So you can sort of relate to it even if it's not exactly the way that you imagined it. Say hello to Dirk. So to give an example of what I'm talking about, and just the whole thing of lack of concern, um, it must have been about a week ago. I was texting back and forth with this woman. I spoke with this woman for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and those conversations online, because of the horrid messaging system that these people choose to use on these websites, that person might get one or two messages a day from you, and they might respond maybe once or twice every 24 hours or so, which is why I prefer when someone says, hey, here's this other website we can go on, whether it's Skype or in some more extreme cases, your phone number. It's just very practical to do that because you're able to correspond more. So I told this person, all this texting stuff is fine and cool and dandy, but are we ever going to get to a point where we actually speak um, in a way that's not just, oh, here's one message for today. How was your day? You go, fine. Oh, good. How is your day going to be tomorrow? I said, this is something that I've done with many other people, and I don't hear back from her for about a week. I say, what happened? She goes, oh well, you know, I gave you an ultimatum and you chose not to go with it, so I left you to your own devices. And I left a message responding back where I said, name one person you have ever developed any level of affinity for, whom you never heard their voice, you never saw what they looked like. Um, well, Dirk, it's not even about sucking at texting because I don't expect people to go beyond the regular, scope of just interacting. But what I do expect is for you to not make getting small, teeny tiny communications aggravating. If we're gonna talk once or twice a day, I'd like for it to be enjoyable. And sitting there and having you tell me that this is only ever going to be this message on this one website is not entertaining for me in the slightest. To respond to Envoy, I'm aware there's no camera. I've actually positioned my phone to against this little thing or whatever because I've noticed it's the audio quality is better when you're hearing it off of the this other side. So when the screen's not directed toward me, the camera's not pointed toward me. I don't know what that is, but it's the norm with these devices now. The quality's better, both sound and visual. It's strange. That name sounds familiar, O'Donohue, but they're not ringing any bells other than just sounding familiar. So if that answers your question, I hope it did. You should have left when she started only texting once a week. No, it wasn't. It was once a day, and then afterward it became nothing, and I was confused by her doing this, and then she revealed what her intent was. My way or the highway. That doctrine and then people wonder, and this is what gets me. I've noticed a spike, especially since October, in having people who will call themselves defending the actions of these various women I've spoken about. And I always say, why is it males who are going on here and trying to back ridiculous behaviors done by various women? And I've never understood that perspective because one, you don't know the person I'm talking about, so I don't see how you can back them. to give you an idea of how ridiculous all of this is, for example, I mentioned that with one of the white knights. Yeah, good point, Envoy. But I mentioned a while back that I had a user who was commenting about you gave her too much attention. That's why she got out of it. But then he's defending a person, or at least rationalizing the actions of a person who not only texted me every day multiple times, but called me up for hours on end every day. I've literally never had a another woman whom gave me that much attention. So to have someone who did that much, be defended as someone who, received too much on my part was insane. Okay, VVS says when back themselves, when those go against each other for not meeting women's standards. Yeah, I agree with that, VVS. Envoy says, I back as well in a sense, but I don't put all of them in a box. I don't speak in totality. It's asinine. I agree. No, and that's what I've tried to really make clear across all of these, various installments. That it's not me talking about every single one of them. I know it's not every single one of them because I have seen people in my own personal life and people whom I've had long term correspondence with that don't have this problem. That are able to meet a partner who says, "This is what I want." There's no, deception or games or any of the other things that might get in the way of just talking and being able to come together for something of a larger ideal. So that, but again, we're getting into territory that's going to kind of cross over into another problem I'm having here. Um, Envoy says, I think a lot of people bash each other more than anything. The radio show the other day and is talking about uploading a raunchy photo on Instagram. Most of the hate she received were from other women. Sounds about right. But you know, I'm glad you brought that up. The whole thing of not no totality, and my mentioning of my previously stating that it's not everyone I'm talking about, and that's something I've tried to stress because I've had people leave these comments, um, and I do get the idea that some people don't actively follow what I put out, as is the case with most of us. No one's keeping a track record of everything we do. But I had a user who commented on my State of the Union response. It was a number of users, and the one comment that stuck out to me the most was the guy who said I should have been sitting with the Democrats for my partisan views, and I said, wait a second, I just sat here and criticized both parties for doing the same thing um, multiple times before that, and obviously multiple times since then. So where do you get this idea that I'm suddenly against Republicans just because they're of that party? Where that didn't make sense to me, and I don't think I responded directly to that comment, but I knew that it was a waste of time to engage with people like this, and it's part of the reason why I've really kind of ceased trying to talk sense into these commenters who will leave a comment that almost feels entirely opposite of what I was trying to convey or misstates. I think I told you guys about how when I was speaking on the so people will say, the pressing issues of African Americans are police brutality, and I've said that, I would rather they focus on, or at least also give attention to the homicides of African Americans by other blacks. We've talked about this before, and there was a user, and again, as I stated right now, my position is you can keep talking about the cop things. No one's saying no one is saying stop, but also address the elephant in the room, which is the 90% of them getting killed by their own ethnic group. And it almost felt like I was in some kind of bizarro world in my comment section when I had this user talk about how he hoped I was beaten into the pavement and wishing all this ill toward me um, on the part of some random officer. And I said, it's sad because from the way you're writing this, it feels as if you want to do that to me. And I take it that he's African American, which if he does and chooses to act that way toward me, it will just be further proving my point that the majority of times when you have these acts of aggression being done onto you, it's by someone of your group. And I've had a lot of people who will come on here and say, "Well, it's also the same for other groups." But I don't. If you're trying to fix one group, you don't care what the other ones are doing, especially the bad things relating to that group. If I pull out a poll right now that says 4 out of 5 African American women are, I don't know, obese, and then you can prove to me that 4.5 out of 5, Caucasian women are obese. I'm not going to care about, the Caucasians in terms of trying to use that to justify why it's okay for a majority of females in my own group to be in a condition that has proven itself to be detrimental to their health. It won't matter to me. Okay, O'Donohue, I don't know what Ultimate Hit is saying exactly too, but Envoy says O'Donohue's society has always put more emphasis on how females um, looks on how women looks rather than men. Look at the cosmetic industry, heavily tailored to women. I remember reading somewhere a while ago, and I wish I had, because I don't like making statements that I can't prove or support my claim in, but there was some comment on one of these forums where they mentioned, or one of these articles rather, that the majority of ads directed toward women, even women who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, are about looking younger and preserving their physical attractiveness. So, just to kind of clarify, that I'm giving my experience with that, with seeing the same kind of things that Envoy was talking about. Just to make sure that I'm following along with the chat. It's not just people talking and me not responding back to them. Occasionally I'll miss a comment here or there, but for the most part I can at least stay there and try to respond back to it. So, um, but yeah, it's a running theme where you have people, and I guess I had Ultimate Hit mention earlier. You always sound depressed or something to that effect. And my philosophy is this: if a person feels confident with their position, they're going to be content with that view. Um, but if a person feels that their views are being mischaracterized and you know constructed as something that they're not, which is down when I talk about the absurdities of some female behavior nowadays, people might think I'm speaking in absolutes when I'm not. I'm going to feel disillusioned because it's going to say to me that people can't take the time to actually figure out that this isn't just all about one person. Okay, Sabre says, so what happened when you confronted this girl? What girl are you talking about? Envoy says, hey, I think also the issue is that women are seen as more fragile of the two genders, so if you dare go against them, you're a bully, or which is ridiculous, can just be just as vicious. Well, here's the thing. If I'm such, a loser, and I guess, see, this is the thing I never understood about detractors of any form. Because, for example, I could call myself a detractor of Trump, but I wouldn't, in being someone who's opposed to him, I'm not going to sit there and listen to anything he says or does after he gets out of office, after the actions he or makes no longer have a seriousness or power to them. So I've always gotten confused when you have people who will come on, my channel, will come on somebody else's channel, and they'll leave these comments where they're trying to besmirch the person who's speaking. And I think to myself, if I am such, these bad things, why am I deriving so much attention from you? You have some, I think you like, I don't know who Bry NS is. Again, all these random characters just start showing up, and I get so confused. Okay, so let me respond to Saberwolf and O'Donohue if they're both still here. They probably went to bed. It is pretty late, the afternoon. Um, No, I that there hasn't been any response back from her. I just said, you have the my way or the highway doctrine, pretty much. Um, so just to answer your question, I just find it really amazing that people will go and say, "Oh, you're so this and that because it didn't work out." But again, I can't force someone to want to respond back to a message. And I know I'm not incapable of keeping uh, you know, long-term communications or relationships because, I've been speaking with my best friend for I think about 10 or 11 years now. So I know that's not impossible. Okay, Envoy says, I never understood that either. I was in a stream yesterday with a YouTuber I frequently watch. Um, and he said something similar. If you don't like someone and are so vehemently against it, why visit the channel? O'Donohue says, how do you pronounce Dissinger? There you go. Um, so that should clarify that. You know, yeah. Responding back to Envoy, I've never understood that type of behavior. If what I'm saying is so aggravating to you, and all I have to say is just ridiculous, why give it attention? As I mentioned earlier, the only reason I don't agree on your views entirely, mostly I do agree with you, but I disagree. I'll sure to articulate way to spur debate. But if we're going nowhere, what's the point? Yeah, that's kind of been the architect of this thing. I don't expect anyone to be on here and agree with me on everything. I certainly expect more disagreements on the just the political stuff, because we're talking about domestic issues, foreign issues. There's plenty of stuff that can be dissected there, but the core idea of having a discussion and airing out what your opinion is, and being convinced in your opinion and being able to state why you think that way is central to what I've tried to create here. You know, I mean, and look, having a discussion isn't the worst part or something that turns me off. We can just sit there and talk. It's fine. But we saw from, I think it was 2 weeks ago, that Dark Times 2 video where the one guy came in there and insulted me. Just again, what purpose do you have, or what purpose do you serve to really better anyone's involvement with YouTube or just any discussion? If you can't even articulate what your problem is with this person and can only choose to insult them, why would I give you, any way of just being able to speak or correspond with me? Yeah, something very good happened earlier today, and if I'm able to make a separate stream, I'll do that. I think their mindset is not to better. They just want to get a rise. That'd be pretty sad. Yeah. And I really, it also doesn't work to their benefit, because it reinforces to me the position I've taken of trying to say something or just speak on whatever, and not necessarily crowd myself with most of the inner, YouTube drama, just because I don't like having the arguments where you go back and forth with other users, is the right position to take, because you end up getting into these um, kind of petty discussions or talks where the person, isn't trying to move the conversation forward, because they don't care about, trying to get something solved or the issue fixed. They're just there to shoot down whatever you have to propose, and to tell you to keep things as they are, no matter how screwed up it is. And we know that if what I was saying had no validity to it, whether it was in the political realm or having to do with these various, absurd behaviors by members of both genders, you wouldn't have anyone in this stream watch right now, I don't think. So it all feels really bizarre, but that's just how people are, where they're trying to back all kind of behaviors. Yeah, I think everyone is tucked out. Everybody went to bed again. Well, Donahue figured out how my name is pronounced, and decided to hit the hay. Okay, Envoy says, the minute everyone was given a keyboard and were allowed to discuss one another, the minute the downfall began. Yeah, it's especially sad because when you think about it, a lot of damaging things can be done with computers, and we just allow anyone who has the money to, or the our capability to. The internet's been used to uh, have multiple bullies push someone into suicide, and other people have been, just depressed, and various other things have happened. But it's really telling when you have people that are, able to just get on here and have nothing blocking them from doing that, no matter how depraved of morality or intelligence they may be. And I think if people went on there trying to learn something, it could be of great service. Because I'd wager that many of the things I've read um, came from the World Wide Web. On Facebook, every woman gets tons of likes and compliments when they change their profile picture. Uh, well, that again, that's more totality than me anything I've ever said, but I can see the point in making that claim. I have noticed where it's like you'll have a woman that will just sit in front of a camera and she'll get 100 likes, and you say to yourself, then you post something about I don't know a news story or how your day was. You might get 3, 4 people if you're lucky. So it's all spinned around. You know, it all has absurdities within it that we've spoken about on here before. Um, but I did want to touch on the other issue of my supposed depression. I don't, I really want to break this down. If I experience um, enough satisfaction with what I'm doing when it comes to, uh, let's say, a project, for example, you know, being able to do a stream and talk about some issue and not have people come in here and make it where people can't have a reasonable talk. I'm fine. But if I have, a day of, oh, you didn't finish this, and you tried talking to this woman, and now she's saying, leave me alone. That's disillusioning. It's disheartening because you get so used to, the more poor qualities of just. Because think about it. Most of us, if I were to ask most of you, what is your ideal version of life? And like pretend that there's not an abundance of women that do things that get in the way of whatever agenda you might have. Most of you would probably say, I want to have the relationships I'd like. I want to have, I guess an average amount of wealth, whatever. Just you would be able to pick out what you would want if you were able to get your way. Um, and I have things that I want that if I were able to get my way would happen. And many of those things, such as being able to, do these streams or just talk about things or know some idea of an issue, I recognize I can do on my own. But when you have things like, oh, I want to have 30 friends, you can't make 20 or 30 people or 40 people all want to talk to you. You can, go and message 50 or 60 of them over the course of however long it takes. But to actually get them to go back and forth with you and want to talk for years and become long-time correspondents, that's something that the other person has to choose. And I guess that's part of what makes not just dropping the topic of talking about, the relationship stuff feel less ideal because people are still going to be bothered by this. And, even acknowledging that it still is up to the woman or the other person in any relationship to make it be sustainable, um, you still have people who will get disillusioned with this, including myself, because you say to yourself, what's wrong with me to where none of these, or at least the overall majority of these, women don't want to pay attention to me. You start thinking there's something wrong with you, and you've got, some unknown physical attribute that turns everybody off, or something else is disturbing or disgusting. When in reality, and this is a truth that, and I tried to say this yesterday, that a lot of people don't want to face. A good chunk of women, I'm not going to give, I'd speculate the lowest this number could be is maybe 40 or 50% that use social media and have all those likes. If you actually go and look at their own lives, many of the women they involve themselves with, they feel only like them because of their status. They don't feel any sense of closeness to. They don't think they can talk with and really see that person as a friend. This is something I can guarantee you is going on with the larger group of females and males who are popular than people are willing to recognize. And I guess the reason I bring it up is because when you watch someone post something online and they talk, oh, I feel so content. You're watching that small, tiny window um, about what they what they want you to see. Behind the scenes, there's women having drama with other women. There's women having drama with the man that they're with. They're cursing each other out. Uh, and it's going on with more people than you think. I can guarantee you, from most, you have had a um a person you liked, whether you liked them as a friend, if it was two guys, or you liked them romantically, and when that person betrayed you, or you felt they stuck you up, or did something that was against your best interest, you looked over on their social media, they looked like they were having the time of their life, and then you found out, or you've speculated that no, that's not the truth. That's not true. That's not how things actually are. Let me read these comments. Okay. Envoy says, in a lot of ways, a lot of them are to blame for that. O'Donohue says, I'll post a photo of a rattlesnake I saw and it'll get 4 likes. Um, it's always mostly women that compliment them. That is true, because when I've gone on the on Instagram accounts of some of the women I've known, it feels like you might get 8 or 9 women to one guy. I don't know what that's about. Uh, and some of them might actually like how each other looks, but I'm just saying that it always feels kind of reversed in a way. Envoy says, "Ha, rattlesnakes are cool, but I don't like them. Snakes have been always been creepy to me. I don't like getting close to any of those either, so I concur." Um, Envoy says, "Yeah, if it goes back to my above statement, Meripus is the more alpha of the two, and we are taught to be lone wolves. Even history, kings have multiple wives. Or Cleopatra from Egypt had a lot of men in life in a sexual capacity in comparison to men have. She's an abnormality, anomaly rather." Okay, Wolf says, "Yeah, social media is a front." Uh, the music fiend says, "Finally, I catch a stream." Envoy says, "Very true. I think it's a cycle. So many women want a guy with status and money. Shouldn't his love be enough? If my wife was independent but was loving and cared about me, that matters more. A lot of women will put money and status above all else, and I think a lot of guys resent that." Elliot asked, "Why can't we see you?" That's because there was a Gallup poll that determined that 89% of American women find me very unattractive, and as a result, I have decided to shut off my appearance from here on in. So there's my response. And then Donahue says he can see Elliot in every way possible. I don't know what VVS is laughing about. Uh, if he's laughing at what I said, that amounts to cyberbullying, and I'll feel very terrorized for days to come. I don't know. Something was really funny to him. I want to know what it was. What about the 11s? Oh, the 11%. Um, okay, so the 11% thought I was either fine or average, but there's a 3 point margin of error also that should be noted there. So, and also think to yourself this: if um, there's millions of, I mean, in my state alone, there's 39 million people. So even if you say to yourself, "Oh, well, that's 11% in the U.S. Oh, you're so lucky." No, no, no. That means that there is a small chance that you might be able to find one of those 11% discounting the margin of error, and they might be in Oklahoma or somewhere else where they're not in close and they love to do that. Well, we don't live around each other, so I can't, we can't start anything up. That's crazy. So it's one issue spurs another. Since I've been in school, shouldn't they teach this kind of stuff to deal with others in a relationship? No, they don't. Envoy. A lot of people graduate from high school without even knowing anything about the Civil War. The education standards, at least from what I've seen in my own schools, I think are disappointing. I mean, people can sit here and claim that everyone just doesn't care, but I really think that it's only these schools that are trying to sit here and cause people to not know things and actively. I mean, for Christ's sake, I wouldn't have known anything about for example, all these politicians taking money from uh, these major corporations, if I hadn't have looked it up online and it had been mentioned by these other alternate news sources. We need life skills course through education. Some people think the Spanish won the Civil War. Yeah, I mean, Trump said that, Jackson, who was dead by the time the Civil War started, was concerned with that war. So everyone is confused, even at the executive level. There's a lot of just lack of understanding just going around in different avenues. Oh, everybody go to sleep again? I never understood. You have 11 people and then no one says anything. Because I assume most of those have accounts. And then you'll have this big puff of silence. And I get all worried that everyone has decided to go to sleep with their computer on. They said, you know what, we're gonna give some views, but what he's actually saying, yeah, we're not doing that one. Okay, let me see what was just written here. They must get the Spanish Civil War and the American Civil War mixed up. I agree with O'Donoghue. Um, Dirk is cyberbullying. How long does it take for you to start a conversation online with women? It depends on who or in what matter I met them. A lot of these ones that are doing this kind of runaround thing now are posting and I kid you not, they are posting um, advertisements looking for males to talk to. So it's not just me randomly going in people's inbox going, "Hey, would you like to speak with me for 3 weeks?" No, it's them saying, "I want to talk with someone," and then when you start talking with them, they put up uh, more requirements than needed to get the Americans back in the Iranian hostage crisis. Depends if it gets past the what is this, the salutations. Um, that's crazy. Women and Envoy. That's the thing that gets me. Think about this. Just every time you see somebody write on my page about the women's so great. If they were as good as is being claimed by many of my detractors, why do they have to post advertisements online looking for guys to talk with? And some of them will say, "I'm just looking for some friend, nothing romantic." I leave those alone. But you have many of them who are and it's not just 5 or 6. You can get about 20 or 30 of those things a day of different women who are at different points in their lives saying, "I am looking for a man." The only girls that approach me online are men pretending to be women. Hey, O'Donoghue, let's not forget what happened at the start of last month. I wish you could make this stuff. I wish you could make this stuff up, but it's real. Yeah, it's real. One of these days when I get a little bit more time, and I actually think it will get a sizable audience, I'll make a maybe a 30 or 40-minute video where I just take screenshots of messages with people's names ripped out of there, and just show you what is said and what is written, and then kind of an aftermath type thing about it. It's funny you're saying this. I have this theory. I say to and have been single for a very long time. Think there's something wrong with her. Um, I think it just comes from them having these all these requirements. I mean, some of them, and this isn't most, but a couple of them will have, I am, and they'll say their age, they'll say their, where, what state they're in, whatever, and then they'll put you are, above 6 feet tall, uh, you have this occupation, you are able to do this, you have been able to, and you just sit here and you go to yourself, wait a second, you want me to fit these what is it, 9 or 10 different categories, but then all you so that I might be able to acquire your attention because we if you go on there and you say, hey, I'm these things, and they say prove it, and you prove it, they still might try to figure out a way of keeping you out. And Elliot's asking, I don't know who that question is directed at, Elliot, but if you think I am, you're about as as accurate at as those polls that said Trump was going to lose in the landslide before the this past presidential election. Imagine the uproar if a guy just asked a woman to be skinny. Um, well, I already told you about what my dream woman or whatever, and how that wasn't that person exists. But if and they there's a couple of them out there, but if they in every instance in which I saw someone that fit that mold, they did not reciprocate, and these weren't people that really had much of it. I mean, I'm not saying anyone is a peasant or anything, but they're not above me in any way. If you catch my drift, you wouldn't walk up to me and go, "Oh, she was in the movie." No, none of that. Just a run of the mill woman who's working an average job like everybody else who tells you that for whatever reason you don't click, or she's with some other guy. Then you come back 2 years later and she's with some other guy. Then you come back another year and she's with another guy, and then just uh, one of those guys knocks her up, and you come back 10 years later, and her child is midway through preschool, and you say to yourself, if you had been with me, you could have, been spared the single motherhood state of living. And then people will say, how would you say that? You're so mean, you're so awful. I'm like, no, but you were fine with the way she was, and clearly these guys weren't, or else they would have stuck around, all 10 of them, and they'll get people get mad if you just outright say I wouldn't have done this, and they'll tell you that you're lying or something. No one's talking about saving anybody. I'm saying that I was fine with a majority of women that I approached and that approached me, and the majority of them chose to run in circles and say, no, 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 we're not going to be anything other than texting friends. And I said that's not desirable. Go away. Okay, I wish Elliot would tell me who he was talking to. And the CEO that wants positions. Yeah, I get all kind of. Let me see. Oh, do you still feel that way? I guess there's some kind of delay between when I say that and when he hears it. Yeah, the chat got quiet. I'm trying. I'm trying to see what his reception is. I wish Elliot will respond. I'm so curious as to if his views have evolved, if he's worked on his position. Let's see. Again, I don't see what is being said here that's that controversial. I'm airing out my grievances with a group of people who I feel have done me in wrong ways, and obviously there's this whole culture about guys that go out and retaliate physically, and I'd much rather just sit here and talk about it. Now I do, I've admitted to being a sore loser, but that's because I don't think someone can do something nasty or say something nasty and not expect a reprisal in the form of me speaking about it and how absurd it was for them to do that. Um, I really don't understand where this would be problematic. I have and I've seen this where if I talk about a male that wronged me, I won't have anyone go on here and go, oh, why would you say this about him? So we know it's a gender war, and it's a gender war that's not even I mean, again, if I were a woman and I was having this would happen with males, I don't think I would get women sticking up for them and going, "Oh man, sister, that was messed up that you said that." Oh, get out here with that. And I love the comments about, "Oh, this has ruined it for you." As I mentioned before, I had the exact same response prior to speaking about this with any regularity and after speaking about this with regularity. Um, yeah, they act like I'm famous or something. Where everyone sees me walking the street, that's the guy from the videos. It's absurd. But again, we live in the era of lack of logic. That's why these music videos where singers will pump their behinds out in front of the camera get billions of views versus a video of a guy talking about um, the economy and how people are getting screwed over by the banks not being regulated. There's just plenty of stuff that is just tipsy turvy and backwards and makes no sense going on right now in terms of what we put our attention into. Bizarre Brilliant says, which dating apps do you usually use? I don't use any of them. I just go on different websites. Man, there are sites all over the web, forums, um, Twitter, places where people will put up, like hashtag I need a friend or something of that nature that lets you know that they're feeling lonely, or at least they're claiming to feel lonely, and then you go and talk to them and they play shock on you. But I did very briefly go on a dating website, and I will never do that again. Yeah, that era of in terms of sites I choose to frequent has came to a grinding halt after the way I was treated by the ones who responded to me. That was just insane. People will really sit there and just be so flabbergasted by um, me mentioning these other things. Oh, you're bringing up stuff that you're trying to insult me with. No, I don't insult people for watching music videos. I don't insult people for engaging in things that are for entertainment purposes. What I'm saying is that there is value to having discussions about things that people aren't talking about, because oftentimes when someone is speaking on an issue and asserting or bringing facts to whatever they're saying, or just speaking from experience, you might be able to derive a viewpoint that was not the same as your own. You've had people come on my content, whether it was political or about the various relationships, and they'll say, "Yeah, I'd never thought of it this way. I hadn't have known that this many people were having this problem." Um, and it's just something that keeps going on that I don't think is getting any better. Um, and I really would have never guessed, going back to just when I um, first became interested in dating or whatever, and just trying to get involved with someone, that it would be that difficult or this difficult to sustain females' interest. And look, I knew that if you don't go out and try to speak or interact with people, okay, fine, you get what you gave. But we're talking about a guy that, at least referring to my own scenario, goes out to these various stores around the place that are frequented by what people would call today's youth, um, and these various websites simultaneously and concurrently, and will have this reception met to him where if he gets the number, they won't respond back. If he doesn't get the number and he complains about it online, we'll have someone tell him that it's his fault, even though it was her decision whether or not she wanted to give it to him. You're stuck in this almost um, never-ending maze, and you say to yourself, well, I went out here and I tried, and I gave it my efforts. I was upfront with them about what I wanted, and now I'm getting the hatred and uh, disillusion. It doesn't add up to me. Have you ever been attracted to a girl mentally for a long time, for a long period of time? Yes, there was one I met over the summer of, I believe it was 2016, and she was working in this store. She expressed interest in political things. She was a quote unquote going to school for it. Whether that's true or not, I never found out. We had one or two discussions about it before. Within days, she told me to leave her alone because she was with some guy that she had been with prior to me even meeting her, which then begs the question, why would you give me your number? And just all, yeah, that was one that I was into mentally, along with the one I mentioned I spoke with for 3 months last year, who gave me the ring around. If you sat there and talked with her and didn't bring up the relationship stuff about, oh, I like you this way, and just said, oh, this was a current news event, um, she would sit there and talk about it, would actually be able to say, "Oh, I remember when you mentioned this. I remember when you mentioned." So she would pay attention and actually be able to derive and know what certain political terms mean. I was mentioning this thing on my channel about how you have guys who get mad about me mentioning, or people rather, the statistics relating to African Americans, and they want to make it seem as if you're not supposed to speak about it, and she called it fascism. But these are terms and things said by someone who I know had a brain. That's why, for someone that seemed logical and all these other things, it almost felt completely backwards in terms of her reaction to, the proposals I put forth, or just the various things I advocated for, to go and start up some long-term uh, just relationship, which wouldn't even begin until we had met each other in person. But again, that's the level of logic that's applied here, and I just keep explaining things over and over again because I've had people misstate my positions on things so often in comments, and when they do their little sneak raids into the live stream chat. I'll say to them, did you actually hear what I said? Hello, was this thing on? Was the audio mute? What happened? You could see. Yeah, I'm good. Oh, that reminds me. But you're the one with the problem. You're the one, there must be something wrong with you, despite the fact that bastard children number 72. These women can't keep a man, that tells you. Saberwolf might remember that song. That's what it reminded me of, talking about going to get help. And ask yourself this: would you really think I needed that if I just complained about political things and other topics, things that didn't have to do with interactions with people? I can guarantee you wouldn't have. But again, that shows you just how warped we are, where we start, asserting the decency of people's minds and intellects based off of how they interact with those that, bar wanting to get a thrill or just, have some long-term goal, you wouldn't speak with anyway. Every time I wanted to quit or give up on this stuff relating to trying to expand the number of people I know, it never was because of not feeling content with the interactions I have now, but it was in knowing that other people can give you certain things that those you currently know um, might not be able to. So, for example, if you are a male and all of your friends or close friends are male, and you want to enter a long-term relationship, and you're heterosexual, what else are you supposed to do but go out and seek these various women that you would have never cared about other than that thing? So it almost just feels strange that's really something I have to sit here and explain and justify, when a lot of people have the same mindset of that if you want something that is only capable through a man and a woman getting together, you're going to have to go out and meet a woman that is reciprocating to these views. Um, so I don't understand why that's hard to accept. And again, we know it's not my standards because I can attest to the fact that majority of the time I've said I was fine with someone and they have decided not for that not to be the case. That's all right, fine, go ahead. I don't know. I think it's sad that I feel so content when I'm just sitting here talking with a good chunk of people I speak with regularly, and they'll say, "Oh, you're this, you're that," something complimentary, and I don't feel that, and I guess this is kind of what I'm trying to convey to other people. I'm willing to bet a majority of you would not feel any level of inadequacy in who you are or what you do if it weren't for this kind of saga we found ourselves in with, you know, interacting with these women. I guarantee that you didn't get the idea of, man, I must have some kind of uh, issue relating to my character because, this group of people doesn't like me. That's just what my perspective. I could be wrong though, and you can inform me on whether or not you would have just felt bad altogether. All right, let's read this. Standards are fine as long as you meet them too, which I assume you do. Yeah, I mean, again, I've given you examples of my own opinion on me as gospel. Well, it's not about just a random woman because a lot of us have tried with loads, and I think it's funny they talk about, and you notice it's very rare to have someone come on here and say, um, I'm obsessed with somebody because they see how I talk about all these different ones. And that's been from the fact that I've been willing to, in the classical sense, move on from one person to the other. But if you're getting the same result with a few variations, um, you get tired of it. And when you feel other parts of your life are going the way you want it to go, and you're happy with those, yeah, you might get glad that those things are going the way you want. But if you can't have that last thing that would just put the cherry on the cake, it doesn't fully resonate with you. You get those victories and you go, yeah, there's this. Think about, they talk about how money can't buy happiness, and which is why I get kind of confused when I see people writing all these comments. But think about this: if you're a millionaire and you're walking around your little mansion house or whatever, and you have all these women that start responding to you, and they're going, "Oh, you're so handsome," blah, blah, blah. And then you notice you didn't have women saying that to you before you gained this cash. Aren't you going to realize? Wait a second, I've become so wealthy and so successful that I now think people only want me for what I have, and therefore I don't trust any of the people that have come about since then. So you really what I'm trying to convey here is that it is a double-edged sword to advance yourself. Contrary to what a lot of these people online are saying, it is a double-edged sword to advance yourself and to have all of these different things. If there are going to be people out there who only want you for those different things, and the people I speak with now, I'm fairly convinced don't want me for those things and actually like my intellect, so I'm going to respond back to them. It's a fairly simple concept that a lot of defenders of just this current pattern of behavior have been trying to justify as this explains why celebrities always get divorced. Yeah, but I'm trying to explain that the this circumstance where you have these wealthy people having those personal issues, it should resonate with you and say, wait a second, so having these things, um, never amounted to just making other people be into me. Let me see. Okay, Elliot says I have an idea. Have you tried going to a local library? Um, the problem with that is a lot of people don't even visit libraries anymore. But also, uh, I can attest to that in instances in which I've gone, it always seems like it's two or three people in there. Or if you go to a bookstore now, most of the people in there are just buying coffee from Starbucks. Hey, the store will be a bookstore, and then you'll have 10 people in line for coffee, maybe two actually looking around in there. Tell you, man, nobody cares about anything long term anymore. They just live in the moment. That's why people can't sit down and read a 200-page book. That's why people can't sit down and watch an hour long what part they were on and then start back from there. It all goes together. That's why when you guys are sitting here talking about where you want to be in 5 and 10 years, and then you have these women that they're getting pregnant by these guys and getting left with these children that are going to be disadvantaged from the jump of being born into a single parent household. It all goes together. It is a pattern of behavior that is exercised by both genders that screws up people that are currently living and people that are going to be living, and in the event that children are born from these short-term unions that these current relationships are composed of. Like it is very easy for a lot of women to just go and have a bunch of different partners, but to actually have someone stick around, it takes work and effort. And both sides have to be willing to compromise. You can't have this, as I said earlier, that person who wrote me that comment about, you're going to have to do the one I mentioned earlier. This woman who was talking about, I only want to text and I left you to your devices. I can guarantee you. Actually, no, I don't even have to guarantee you. Think about this. If what she was offering was so valuable, if what she was so good, why is she on that website trying to get males to still talk to her, going into her? I think she's in her mid-20s. Ask yourself that. Just move out of this belief that people are trying to spin in your head that you're really going after something right now that is just wanted by everyone. I wish I could be in their point of view on everything. Envoy says I think need to be a little bit more cutthroat with some. What do you mean cutthroat? On O'Donohue says a lot of these young people who get married end up divorcing, but a lot of them don't even get married. They just have, and again, going back to our little thing we spoke about with the Christians, um, a lot of these current relationships are made up of sex partners that like to jump in bed because both sides think the other person is attractive and are turned on by outlandish, ridiculous behavior. They spawn some child that is going to have to suffer for 16 to 18 years before it gets to to be able to do whatever it wants, and continues the cycle of social degradation, and the rest of us have to live in that world. I'm asking Envoy, what does he mean by cutthroat? Okay, Envoy says taking more of a, being upfront if you're not already. Sorry for assuming. No, I told him up. No. The one I spoke with for 3 months, I told from the first week I spoke to her that if we are able to um, be able to have a conversation that is conducive to just understanding each other, and we both find each other, we or she claimed to find me physically attractive, which is whatever. And look, if I read her stuff, you'll think that I wrote that. Let's put it that way. It was very complimentary. So I said, okay, well then, why can't we do something? Oh, we're not the same religion. Are you serious? Okay, well then, that's kind of unnecessary. If you like my personality as well as my appearance, I don't see what religion has to do with it, especially when I didn't impose my religious views on her whatsoever. I've already talked about. I already been alleged as a closet agnostic, even though that's not true or whatever. Um, Let me see what else is here. What about? I don't. I'm not sure if you have to. Would like to say, please, your thoughts count is similar to mine. Currently, keep moving on. Thank you. I appreciate D Jones for that comment. Uh, so yeah, that's nice. You see, are either too busy or too promiscuous. Yeah. No, you'll be surprised by just how. And I'm not just talking about ones that go to school, because I mean, if I sit here and express some of the circumstances I've had happen from ones that attended institutions with me, you won't believe it. Uh, but I'm talking about just going to places and having people act like you don't exist. Like I went to this mall about, I think it was last month, and might have spoken about this story earlier, not in this stream, but in other ones, where there was a woman that was walking by herself. I came up to her. She's talking about, oh, I'm an immigrant, whatever, from another country. Oh, that's cool. Um, We talked for about 3 4 minutes. I asked her if she had a number. She gave me her social media. I sent her a message, or maybe three or four of those things over the course of a week or so, and then she finally responded saying, yeah, I have stuff to do, like go to school, and I have to get a job." And so that's perfect because I have, I know a place that is very close to, um, a local grocery store. They go and they have, I mean, they have a help wanted sign every time you go past there. Personally, because I've heard the management is poor, but that's another story. So I, mention this to her. I don't say what the place is, but I get no response. Wait a second, you just said you wanted a job. If I'm telling you where you can get one, wouldn't you inquire? So it and remember, that's someone I met in person. Other in-person encounters include the one that I said I wanted to speak with her, and she just walked away from me. The one that I asked for the number and that we call it in person before, and she said no, and then thanked me for asking her if she wanted it, and then um, said, don't just say up front. Yeah. Well, all I'm saying is that people who are telling me that it's so bad to sit here and try to do things aren't that are not, what do you call it, in person, and that somehow is lessening the chances, are very inaccurate in my opinion. I've had more say yes online than in person. So I just think that it's because on here I'm more upfront about views on things. Depends on what you could get along. Have you ever? Yeah, I've already talked about where I don't agree with. Look, if I ever were to become of a behavior similar to that, I wouldn't announce it or call myself being part of a group. That's just me. Um, they act like, but in reality, they act like on television, on reality television, are that too. But there's so many guys not getting there, loads and loads of them. Yep. And then Saberwolf plagiarized Bizarre Brilliance's paragraphs. So our paragraph rather. So we're gonna you know charge him with word theft. Put that little uh character up there. I think you can speak for all, and most people think you are complaining, but this is rough. Like you. Um, well, if any of you have been keeping up with the news story of that woman with the 10 children and the guy that she was with, and how he had that tattoo right under his eye, where you can kind of tell who that is. And you saw the conditions of their house, you would get very frustrated because I became irritated at the idea of, yeah, I heard about that movie, Donahue, but I became irritated by the idea of, wait a second, so I'm gonna sit here and for many years do things that either um, reinforce my own views. I was just reading that. I was planning on doing a stream about that today in place of this one, but I couldn't get around to it. Maybe I'll talk about it tomorrow. There's just a whole bunch of stuff going on, but it's stories like that that discourage me from believing in this farce of people want someone who's nice and someone that uh, is willing to do so whatever. Just I don't buy it. I think a lot of people don't want to recognize the fact that there is a wide variety of not just men, but not just women, but men too, who, when it comes to the type of partners they want, what they say and who they end up with are two different things. You will have the same woman online posting about, I want a man who, makes food for me in the morning, being the same one who's going after the guy that uh, we call has the record, like Jeremy Meeks. No, it's attainable. It's just it's not. They have this thing about, oh, maybe I can change this person. Yeah, 19 are watching right now, and maybe 5 or 6 we watch tomorrow, and we talk about something that's not drama related, which probably still will be tomorrow anyway, but it definitely won't be on Saturday. I don't know what people are getting so excited about with those numbers. You have people that still aren't going to actually say anything, or if they do, it's going to probably be someone coming in here to play around and not actually speak on what's going on here. So I know the pattern. We know the cycle. To kind of emphasize what I was talking about earlier, it's just all in all a running theme of, and I think I want to, people talk about history repeats itself. That when events remind you of something from before, it's either a suggestion of a pattern or something of a presence that's almost out of your control. And I do think that last one is very telling of my situation, because in most scenarios you're seeing these women, for example, who are saying, no, I don't want to have this with you or do anything relating to you. And you say to yourself, well, she can make this choice, but if I go and air it out and reveal that I've had this happen to me, people are going to, make me the bad guy for something that she chose to have happen. You should have done this. Man, come on, go away. The person who's not there knows more than the person who was there. How about that? Also, just to kind of give you guys notifications, and this happened with Envoy's last comment. Whenever you use words that are deemed by the system to not be correct, they get removed or held back automatically by the automated thing. Which I don't know why they couldn't trust me to to react to my own comments, but they'd assume that anytime somebody uses a swear word, it's insulting the whoever's in here. So just to let you know, if you put any swear words in your messages, they'll get pushed back or kept in place, to give you an idea of why you won't see it later on. I try to convince my friends that it's wrong to pay for everything, but they wouldn't have it. It's so unfair that and have to pay for every meal. 100 on a meal. That's insane. I usually opt to going to a coffee shop. I'll spend no more than like 10 to 20 bucks on the first date. Well, again, we're talking about guys who can't even, actually get the dates. They're just, pushed to the back burner. I mean, every time people come in here talking about what was that, the 80% of women will only get the top 20% of guys or something, and you always ask yourself, well, what does that mean exactly? Is the top 20 males they find the most attractive, or is it males that are just, and if it is attractive, then in what way? Physically, financially? I don't get it. We know it's not just financially, because I can guarantee you, when Meeks got out of jail and was bailed out by that woman who's going to be a millionaire, um, I doubt he had more than maybe $1 in his pocket. So I think it's just looks and status, because his portrait, that picture, that mugshot went viral. I just find it really disturbing that the guy who's gonna become heir apparent to get all this cash is not someone who worked for it, not someone who, okay, whatever, was born into it. It's someone that was just a regular, by all accounts, dealer on the street, and then gets arrested, and because enough women get uh, horny over seeing his photo, it gets spread all around the internet, and everyone knows who he is, and he gets all these modeling contracts afterward. The only model I can guarantee you that's going to have an official photo and a mugshot and some criminal record that actually has to be written on multiple pages. Okay, Jeremy Meeks O'Donohue. That's who. I'm surprised you. I would think you would remember who that was by now. That's the only person that has had that happen to him. Yeah, I agree with Elliot that he doesn't deserve what he got. Um, because it's tradition, blah 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 blah. Look, if people really cared about tradition, you wouldn't have all of these children being born out of wedlock. You wouldn't have people having sex before marriage. The reason that the rate of children that were born out of wedlock increased in the last 20 to 30 years wasn't because people didn't have sex as they grew up, you know, back then. It was because people actually got married earlier. They got married right out of high school, sometimes in high school. Um, they rushed to it. And when they rushed to it, they knew that the person they were going to rush to it with, they were going to stay with. Okay, D Jones and Sable, if I feel you guys, it's a shame to be honest. I wouldn't spend too much. That's just how it goes. Is he the criminal? Yes, that's what I'm talking about. O'Donohue. The Jones says because all these children are born means more gangs and homeless people. Yeah, but what I want to be understood is that people have this weird thing about age. They go, oh well, if I won't get married until I'm 30. And you say to yourself, you live in a world where people have nuclear weapons that can, when they hit, I mean, you can be here 1 minute and then not be here the next hour. And you're really going to tell me about what you'll do in 2,000 days? Are you serious? And I'll even make this statement. A child who was born to parents who were married for 5 years by the time they were in their mid 20s is better off than the bastard child of two 30-year-olds who were having sex for 5 or 6 months and then just happened to pop it out. So we need to really get rid of this whole thing about age, 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 age. It has to do with planning and development and actually thinking ahead of things. I've never understood this absurdity. Okay, here comes Saberwolf again. Saberwolf, you can hear me. Your comment was held for review. I'm gonna show it, but again, stop putting in those words that the system won't allow. You put, I think the best first date is a pick, but it feels like the chances. You can't use that last word. I'm telling you, the system will. So anyone who wants to put a swear word, be warned. The system will do that. And sometimes I've actually had this happen. I'll go back on here try and put the comments in, and it won't let me. It'll say glitch, error, oops. I'm gonna be controversial, but I think it's funny since the divorce rates have gone up. But of all these kids, you have to believe their education will be poor. Um, Very unique looking. That's what O'Donohue says. Well, we know the education is poor because the two people. Think about this. Why would I have faith or belief in the capabilities of parenting, which requires thinking ahead of time? I mean, you have people that start saving, the good ones anyway, start saving cash for college from the time those kids come out the womb. Why would I believe in the capabilities of teaching that the parents of a child who's born out of wedlock may have when the parents themselves proved that they didn't even take developing this offspring into consideration before they jumped in bed, either with no protection or if they did with no financial protection. Yeah, that's why you have all the. And also, by the way, if having a whole bunch of money was what turned women on, then why do you have people who are able to have children that live in poverty? How many women and men can you think of that you've seen on street corners holding up, I need some money, please help me? And then they say, oh, son, 3 children, 5 children, 7, 8. Ask yourself that. If it was true that you needed cash to appeal to these, I don't know what millions means, what VVS is referring to. You're gonna have to clarify. But if that were true, why do you have this? No, you would think condoms cost like $500 or something. It's just, again, the abnormal is normal now. When they hear what? Women in poverty having children comes from a lack of contraception, and inadequate education. Well, let me respond. And look, Casey, I applaud you for maybe stating a position that isn't necessarily the full thing as my own. Okay, so I can agree with the lack of contraception part, but they know that when they jump in bed, and are not protected, there is a chance the woman will get pregnant. That they know that from seeing it happen to their peers. I mean, it's common knowledge, and I only give the parents youthful discretion if they're maybe some really young age. But if they do it over and over again, that's why my sympathy just starts waning. And like for example, if when they found this story about these parents, these 10 children, um, if that had just been one kid that they had that lived in that house and they were struggling financially, okay, whatever. But it's 10 that are living in filth and squalor. Um, I could also say certain religious or social pressures cause this. Okay, I don't know what. Well, if we're, I can agree with the social pressure one. I don't think, if anything, religion advocates against it. Remember, well, if you're Christian, no sex before marriage. Well, isn't that in there? The Bible, or just one of the views that's articulated by the church. What do you think when a person says, "Well, we were meant to reproduce"? What do you mean? What do I think? I don't know what the context of that is. A person just says that. Yeah, people are meant to reproduce, but they're also meant to take care of what they put out. Anybody can spread their legs and pop a child out, but if they're not going to put investment and time into the thing, then just they're being irresponsible. Unfortunately, the child has to suffer for their lack of ability to think ahead of things. It feels better without protection. That's why they do it a lot. Oh no, I know that. I'm just saying that I don't see where you can blame anyone other than the parents for having these children. Like, okay, I was born into this poor economic situation, whatever. But as far as you know, this person, being uh, deciding to jump in bed, I don't feel bad for him. O'Donohue, your comment was held back. Yeah, I wonder how much better it's gonna feel for the guy when he gets tacked on for child support and put in jail. Along the lines of many don't allow, which can lead to more and more, which can cause poverty. Oh, okay, that, yeah. But I'm saying that in some of these cultures, they do have a thing about getting married before having sex. I know with Muslims they have that, or with Islam rather. We're going in the world and let them suffer because the sex. Oh, let me read Envoy's comment. I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read it in the male voice and the female voice. We're gonna bring a kid in the world and let him suffer because the sex feels so good. And here's the female voice. This is the woman that thinks she can change everybody. We're going to bring a child in the world and let them suffer because the sex feels so good. Elliot says, just remember, man, they are messing their lives up. Well, well, again, if it was just them sitting there and being, ridiculous and not thinking about things ahead of time, I wouldn't care. But you're ruining someone else's life every time you do that. When you bring these kids into the world that are born into these circumstances which are not ideal. Yeah, I get that, O'Donohue, and that's also part of where I've disagreed with them on. But I could, if I really want to sit here and name all of the areas where me and the Catholic Church have gone head to head, I might have to make a whole separate stream about that, and I'll probably have on some boxing gloves. I don't agree with this. I don't agree with that. And I'll ask you, how are you still Catholic? Like, well, I'm a radical one. I believe in Christianity reform. I'm telling you, and what my view is just look. I may be plain spoken about my discontent with parts of religion, but people actively are against parts of religion. That's why they don't honor their father and their mother, or if they do, they're allowing people to do things that are against um, the Lord's wishes. So, like, condoms should definitely be. I'm for both of those being uh, able to be implemented. I'm just telling you that view is one that's causing a lot of problems now. D. Jones says religion does nothing but divide people. You know, there's a correlation between religion and advancing any kind of ridiculous cause. Like you have a lot of these Christian pastors who will treat LGBT people as if they're the worst thing to walk the face of the earth, when in reality, that person that's talking all that hatred is more likely to be the case than them, just by his rhetoric. So a lot of it is just hypocritical and ridiculous. So I would partially agree with that comment. I mean, hey, if you whether you agree with it or don't agree with it, I'm fine, because that's one of those issues that I don't ever see going away, and it's one of those things where it's that, and maybe and a death penalty, where I can get where a person has a position on, that goes either way. My friend thought it was horrible when they were going out, when they were giving out free condoms at college. Really, who cares? Apparently, your friend did. Um, Dirk says true. Envoy says free condoms are good. Oh my, okay. All pro 777. Your comment was hidden because you have. I guess I don't. They don't tell you what words making it, but yeah. So I'm gonna put it back in there. But again, uh, keep certain words out of there. I won't walk away from. I will walk away from it that would ever want me to have sex with her without a condom. Those those accidental, purposeful pregnancies. Yeah. JMO says my cousin got pregnant by a guy who already has 4 baby mothers. Hey, let's do it. Let's do it. I got 5 baby mamas in enough for a basketball team. I'm living the dream. That's the ideal in the hood. Okay. D Jones says I have to go. Don't stop speaking on what's real. I guess. O'Donohue says the Catholic Church acts like condoms are a mortal evil. Yep. JMO is giggling. Elliot says, "Did you say you want kids?" I've told most of the ones I spoke with for any long span of time. I mentioned that to them, and we actually had disagreement. I had one of them who tried to blackmail me with that, actually, but I've already spoken about that before. And Dirk is also amused. I don't take requests during streams. It has to be scripted, and I have to think about it for a while. Those are the kinds that are attracted to you, which is a shame. I agree with Cleo, even though he said JMO instead of IMO. So, Jin his opinion, Jin my opinion rather. So give his opinion much alcohol and juice or whatever gin is. All right, I'm getting close to. There's been heartache and pain. I don't know if I can. In my life, there's been heartache and pain. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I can face it again. I don't know. I don't know if I can face it again. Would you date a woman disabled in a wheelchair? O'Donohue, I think I mentioned before, there was a woman that I was more than willing to settle down with that was blind. I didn't care. People have all kind of diseases and issues, and I look past them. I've compromised as much as I think anyone can. Envoy is saying he would pay good money to hear me sing. All Pro is giggling about something. Elliot's asked me, what are my plans after this? What do you mean, what are my plans after this? After the stream, which I expect to come to an end soon because I'm getting kind of tired. I don't know what its terrible T is referring to. And, Envoy's over there giving the stream 2 thumbs up. If he has 2 thumbs, because all these people have physical abnormalities now. And it's sad because it's not like they're born with it. They just go and do something ridiculous. Uh, I guess O'Donohue, I'm not sure. They don't make music like that anymore. I was referring to you willing to settle down with it. Yeah, I didn't care. No, she was I was on her page and then she said, "Oh, I like you." Oh, cool, this is great. This is back, I think during June or July of last year, and then out of nowhere she said, "I want somebody to be friends with and then romantically involved with," and then so oh, can we be friends? So, yeah, I'm good. No, 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 thank you. We're not doing that one. I like how it's terrible. T shows up every once in a blue moon. JMO says my cousin is going to be another single mother. It's sad. I'm gonna tell you like it is, JMO, and you can feel any kind of way you want about it. Unless the father of your cousin's child uh, died in a war, one of these American wars in the military, or while working at some store, by some freak accident or something else that he didn't directly cause to have happen, to where that relationship isn't still going on. I don't think it's sad at all. So basically, I'm saying that if your cousin was not married to that man before jumping in bed with him, I think she got what I won't say got what she gave, but definitely is in a circumstance that she contributed to, and I think you'd agree with me. And I'm not talking negatively about your cousin at all, but I'm saying that we have to get out of this mindset of feeling so bad for people who do things that are diametrically opposed to what's we consider normal. Would you ever date a really strange? I would say been there, done that. So I tried when I was on. It's 11 p.m. over here. Well, it's time for its terrible tea to go to bed. Staying up at 11 p.m. in England. You have to go to. You have to make sure that your priorities are met over there. Is that where the teas and crumpets are? I don't know. There's all kind of. I feel like if you put it's terrible tea on a live stream, you just start hearing this accent. I'll just probably start laughing. Okay, someone left a comment and it won't. It's early where. No, it's 3 o'clock over here. 3 p.m. rather. Oh, it's sad how this is so much more easier to do when I'm not holding the camera. Really a shame. What else is here? I think it's crazy how difficult it is to find a good partner, even with married people in America. I think this was only seven or happily married. Um, yeah, but Casey, it's even more sad that people who have trouble with this are told to just suck it up, get over it. And you're not a man. You're whatever term. You can think about this. You could pay your bills. You can take care of yourself. You can take care of those you've been told to take care of. And because a woman won't surrender herself sexually to you, there's you have some kind of mental deficit, or there's some other thing that is wrong with you according to them, and it really disillusions me. It disgusts me because it basically tells you that your entire validation must be from a woman. Um, yeah, I know that's why it's longer because I don't have to hold it. My arm gets tired after 30 minutes of me holding the camera in front of my face. Um, Even if you round that to 20, it's like saying you have a one happiness on your first marriage. Can guarantee you guys that she got in one of the top 10 guys. I'm sure the man that she did get pregnant by was attractive, but again, what is that attractiveness going to do to put food on the table? So I again, the double-edged sword rears its head again. What are some telltale signs you know a crazy woman is? Okay, so whenever I do that private that message thing, and it's coming, there is a woman who literally, and I kid you not, she sent me pictures of her. And she was very beautiful in my opinion, physically anyway. And you will never guess how much time went by where I didn't say anything because I was in the store that she just got so angry where she's all right. It was nice talking. You don't like me anymore. Bye. Not one, not an hour, not 2 hours, but 6 minutes. Because I didn't respond to her in 6 minutes, she decided to become so angry as to say, "I can't believe you don't want to talk to me anymore." So I think that's a telltale sign. Terrible T says, "When's the next chapter of the There's only one more left. When that thing is probably going to be longer than all the other ones. I just have to finish writing it and record it, and then I'll be done. I didn't even know anyone still remembered that thing was existed. So yeah, 6 minutes. That drove her. That proved to me that woman was literally insane. I have no problem saying it either because I've literally, if you knew how many women I'd spoken to for several days at the very least, and how none of them have done something that outlandish or said something like that, you would know. So I would definitely, you know, attest to the validity of my claim. Yeah, I thought the only person that was paying attention to that book was VVS. I didn't realize it had an ardent following of two supporters. Oh, and Elliot's all confused. What are you talking about? What do you mean? Yeah, there's a lot of different stuff that's on here that you know gets less attention but takes longer to make than the streams. It is what it is. That sounds like it's from Lovecraft. What sounds like it's from Lovecraft? I want to see how is Saberwolf trying to cyberbully me. I want to see what he means. Edgar Allan Poe. So let's find out what he means. I'm waiting for him to respond. And here's Amino being the 11th hour ranger. Why is the screen black? Because I'm not holding the camera up. I'm tired of holding that thing. I had other things I want to do. So I'm multitasking. We get so confused. What do you mean the screen's dark? I came here to look at his face. Yeah, Amino, according to a new Gallup poll, 89% of American women find me unattractive. So that's why we don't have my picture anymore. And let me read that. According to the latest Gallup poll conducted from April 25th to April 29th, 2018, Justin Dissinger is really ugly. Maybe the camera got wet and that's why you can't see anything anymore. How do you feel about one of your getting 200 I feel nothing about it. If only that can get attention, then there's something wrong. Uh, just with what we are into. So I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna go and do some other things. Again, I'm surprised there's actually an audience for that novel. I just okay, well I can just drop this because nobody's paying attention. So cleaning his what? Getting ready, listening. Like I don't know what that means, but so I will have something else out tomorrow that's definitely going to be shorter than this. Um, is a bad boy and currently in car. Yep. And JMO. Before we end this, again, it's like that. That's why when I talked earlier about the Ferris wheel, I feel like that's not just for me, but also for these women and the guys they actually choose to lay down with because I'm very convinced that guy did not have a metamorphosis in his personality after she got with him or got pregnant by him. Again, this isn't to say that she's the worst person ever, but when you allow that to become the father of something, and then it by and large the qualities of that person are not good things, you know what the outcome is. So it all is sad and very disheartening. But for the few of us that are able to turn the tide and correct the mistakes of our contemporaries and our predecessors, I'm at least happy about that. So thank you for watching. I'll have something else up tomorrow. Have a good day.